in England and parts of Scotland, some heavy downpours possible. And in the south, some brighter spells may well trigger some heavy showers as we go through the day. There'll be a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east, so a cool day here with some brightness further south. We could again get up to 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the biggest cash prize we've given away to date. An incredible £20,000 that you could use however you like. And because it's totally tax-free, every single penny will be in your bank account to do whatever you like with. £20,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours this summer. Hurry, you've got to be in it to win it. For another chance to win £20,000 in tax-free cash, text PRIZE to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB05, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 31st of May. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sam Richardson is a singer-songwriter from St Agnes in Cornwall. Much of his music reflects a sense of frustration with life in a coastal town.
We've got a lot of empty shops in a lot of our town centres, which is sort of causing a lot of death on the high street. I know that's a problem everywhere.
Similar problems across the border in Devon. Ilfracombe is the most deprived area in North Devon. Twice the town has applied for levelling up funding. Twice it's been turned down, something North Devon MP Selene Saxby says is frustrating.
It's very complicated. It's not as straightforward as just throwing money at the problem. They're very deep issues.
For several years, the government has acknowledged that rural areas need extra help, but so far that help doesn't stretch to our coasts. The MP for St Austell and Newquay is pushing the government to change all this.
Truly local people are finding it really challenging because we often have sort of low wage seasonal work, but very high house prices pushed up because of second homes and holiday lets, etc. And also, I think the disparity review that Theresa May carried out when she was Prime Minister highlighted that working class white boys in coastal communities are some of the most disadvantaged people in the country.
Struggling to get on the housing ladder, struggling to find work, struggling to be heard.
It's interesting that a member of the party that's in government recognises that, which is great, because it is a really important thing. But that government, for the last 10 years, has also cut £500 million in youth services around the country.
No one thinks the problem of coastal deprivation can be solved overnight. The issue of disaffected young white males even harder.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister is travelling to Vienna for talks with the Austrian Chancellor about illegal migration. It comes after the government promised an extra £25 million for the National Crime Agency to tackle people smuggling gangs. Rishi Sunak will hold talks with his counterpart, Karl Nehammer, tomorrow. It's understood they'll say designated safe third countries, like Rwanda, are part of the solution to prevent dangerous small boat journeys. 15 EU countries, including Austria, have signed a letter calling on the European Commission to tighten migration policy and to look at third country schemes. A day of shame for the British state. That is the Prime Minister's reaction to the findings of a 5-year inquiry as he offered victims of the infected blood scandal a wholehearted apology. The final report identified a catalogue of failures by the NHS and successive governments and concluded thousands of deaths could have been avoided. Inquiry Chair Sir Brian Langstaff said the scandal had been exacerbated by a chilling cover-up from those in positions of power, including the deliberate destruction of evidence by officials. More than 30,000 people were infected with HIV and hepatitis C between 1970 and the early 90s because of contaminated blood products.
This is a day of shame for the British state. Today's report shows a decades-long moral failure at the heart of our national life. From the National Health Service to the Civil Service, to ministers in successive governments, at every level, the people and institutions in which we place our trust failed in the most harrowing and devastating way. They failed the victims and their families, and they failed this country.
Inquiry Chair Sir Brian Langstaff also found victim suffering had been compounded by the slow pace of government compensation, and in waiting for the conclusion of the report, Rishi Sunak, he said, had perpetuated the injustice. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer also apologised, saying victims had been failed by all parties, including his own.
I acknowledge that this suffering was caused by wrongdoing, delay and systemic failure across the board, compounded by institutional defensiveness. And as Sir Brian Langstaff makes clear in his report, any apology today must be accompanied by action.
A woman in her 50s has been mauled to death by her own XL bully dogs at a home in Hornchurch, East London. She was treated by emergency services but was pronounced dead at the scene. The two registered dogs have since been seized. Julian Assange can mount a fresh appeal against his extradition to the United States on charges of leaking military secrets. The WikiLeaks founder will now be able to challenge US assurances on how a trial there would be conducted and over the protection of his right to free speech. Mr. Assange faces prosecution on espionage charges related to the disclosure of information about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, which the US argues endangered lives. You can get more on all of our stories by signing up to GB News Alerts. The QR code is on your screen. The details are also on our website. Now, time for headliners.
Thank you, Aaron. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your nightly run through the next day's newspapers with three comedians. I'm Leo Kirst, and for anyone who says we don't do diversity at GB News, tonight I'm joined by Josh Howie, a Jewish comedian from North London, and Kerry Marks, a Jewish comedian from a different street in North London. How are you both doing?
It's not my whole identity, you know.
Yeah.
It's a tiny bit.
We do live precariously close to each other.
Right. OK, well, that's the chit-chat out of the way. Let's have a look.
Good chit-chat.
Let's have a look at Tuesday's.
A1 chit-chat there, Leo.
Start the way you mean to go on.
Three autistic comedians in a room. This is what happens. The Daily Mail leads with Day That Shames the British State. That's the infected blood scandal that we're covering in a moment. The Telegraph also has a day of shame for the British state. The Guardian has Day of Shame, deadly cover-up of blood scandal finally exposed. The Times has Britain's Day of Shame over tainted NHS blood. The iNews has Day of Shame for Britain. Blood scandal cover-up killed thousands. And finally, the Daily Star has the one where Matthew Perry visits Courtney Cox from beyond the grave. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Mail. I can guess what they're covering.
Well, like every other one, yeah, but they're with the same words. Day that shames the British state, but it's just one day? No, this has been going on for over 40 years, nearly 50 years. The numbers are incredible. 3,000 deaths, 30,000 people affected with HIV and hepatitis C. And the idea that it's sort of, they've been doing this report now for 5 years, but the idea that OK, we're just going to do an apology and we're going to pay this money finally to the people who might have survived through that time. It seems like they've dragged out long enough. But really, what I'm interested in is what are the ramifications here? What's the follow-up in terms of, we know that individuals in these institutions knew about it, kept it going. Thousands of people died needlessly because of this cover-up within the NHS, within government. where's the accountability? And that's what the families rightly want to discover for themselves, and that is what seems to be very not coming through on all these days of shame.
I mean, Kerry, there's
don't look at me. It wasn't my fault. I mean, he just wears accountability and it's straight on me.
I'm not suggesting for a moment anybody would put you in a position of responsibility.
Well, I hope not.
But I mean, part of the sort of cynical reason it's been dragged out so long is that the people who were infected, some of them have died, and it sort of reduces the amount of compensation the state will have to pay out, and also because the people who are responsible have been dying as well, because it's gone on for 40, as Josh says, nearly 50 years.
Yes. That's a very good way of getting away with it, isn't it? Dying. It's been the most successful method of not being prosecuted ever. And I honestly think we should. I think it's time we get rid of politicians and civil servants and replace them with people who run inquiries. They're so good, aren't they? They're so thorough and meticulous, and they really care about their subjects. It's horrible. I mean, as Josh says, it's decades of shame that's gone on. It's a tragic story, and it's part of it was also the hospital with boys that were used as guinea pigs for this medication and so on, and it's really horrific. But it's but it's also the extra horror of it is that we need to trust the NHS and the medical profession and the providers of drugs and so on. And I think that the public trust in all of this is really lapsing already. So with this coming in,
exactly. I mean, we saw over COVID, people, government was quite insistent that we all get jabbed, and anybody who questioned it or anybody who refused to get a COVID jab was condemned as some sort of far-right conspiracy theorist. And, lucky guess. But, I think this kind of vindicates some people having a bit of suspicion about what the government wants to do.
Having concerns. But as we've talked about this in the past, I feel like for a lot of people, COVID was an awakening to a degree. And I don't mean to full-on crankery. It actually wasn't even COVID that was the awakening. It was the aftermath, where people like myself who'd sort of smugly gone, oh, yeah, like it really came from China, you idiots. And then, it might have come from China. Oh, OK. Of course it's safe. Yeah, it might not be as safe. So I think for a lot of people like me, smug idiots, we might have been awakened to that. So the next time we're going to go, actually, you know what, I'm going to be out there marching as well.
Yeah. OK, well, we'll look forward to it. Moving on, next up, we've got the Telegraph, Kerry. What's in the front there?
Well, we've got a couple of stories I think we're going to look at here. One is that let police use covert surveillance to stop extreme protesters, report urges.
That's Josh when he's out there protesting next time.
I thought we were. I haven't read through the whole story, but I thought we were using covert surveillance. Has been around for a long time, and I thought we use them at protests, and we do with football, don't we? We looking for hooligans and so on, and people are troublemakers.
That film ID.
What was that?
Where he goes undercover at the football hooligans.
I've not seen it.
That's a good film.
I think you're making it up.
Good film, audience.
But protests.
Is this a film review now?
Yes.
This programme's changed.
Protests that have been on, they've had lots of police officers filming, quite...
Well, that's what I thought this is what goes on all the time, and, but I don't know who they're actually... I mean, are you looking at anyone who's screaming at a sign saying that Hamas are terrorists? I mean, is that now someone who's suspect? Because maybe it should be, but then you end up with... You're going to have a lot of future suspects. And, of course, this is all happening... was it last week or the week before, where the police foiled a plot to machine gun a load of Jews in the north of England? And then that's right. And then 2 days later, of course, you got protests with people screaming in their thousands to globalise the Intifada. Just after that's happened,
tens of thousands.
Just after a demonstration of that. Well, I don't know how many thousands were shouting.
But I was there. There was about 50 to 100 Jewish people and some Iranians, and then it was I would say at least. It could be up to 100,000. I know it was like 3 hours of just this hatred coming at you. And I put a clip on today online. This woman shouting, "Go back to Europe."
Yeah.
Did you? Have you done it?
You've done it. You've done it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it right now.
You got around to it so quickly.
It's great because it's such a nice feeling to tick something off your to-do list.
Well, at least it's not Poland now. At least they're allowing us to stay in one place. So.
But the problem, of course, with this, and this is this long. We've heard about this report in the news over the last week, and the Telegraph seems to have been slowly covering drip some of the points. Is that there is a danger of course, overreach, and as Andrew Doyle, our patron, always says, and rightly so, what can be used to attack your political enemies can then be turned on you.
Yeah.
So that is, of course...
We always see mission creep with police legislation. When the regulatory, the RIPA bill came through, it's supposed to be used for catching, online predators and, mafiosa and people like that. And within about 3 months, we're using it to catch fly tippers. So there's always...
Yeah, well, the terrorist laws, that happened almost straight away. And it wasn't even like there was a few years where it migrated over to this. But in fact...
But it's not like there aren't laws presently existing. And that's the thing. Use the powers that you have that have been given to you and do them well, and they haven't been doing that.
Yeah, the problem is that the police have been saying, well, the numbers are so great, we can't apply these laws. And it's like, well, then we need to have a serious look at what's going on here, because, if you can't arrest people who are, screaming terrorist slogans and, upholding Hamas and glorifying Hamas, then, something needs to be... We need to look at some other solution to it. Anyway,
what solution do you think?
I don't know. I'm not a solutions guy. I'm a problems guy.
There's another story here if you want to...
I can just give you problems.
President, do you want to do a helicopter?
Should we go onto the helicopter or...
We don't have time for the helicopter.
No time for the
died in a helicopter.
Yeah, you might have heard of it. The Iranian president.
Some helicopter died with a person.
We will talk about him later. Apparently his helicopter was 50 years old. So do get your helicopter checked out if it's over 10 years old. What have the Times got in the front cover, George?
Tiny story because they've obviously gone with the NHS story as well. But self-drive by 2026, which is, if I do my maths correctly, in 6 years' time, 7 years' time, something like that.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah,
you're too good for this show.
A self-driving car would have worked that out quicker.
So, supposedly we're at the forefront of this technology. The government has been investing in this for a couple of years. They're saying it could lead to like 42 billion pounds in terms of and with 38,000 new jobs. That all sounds great on paper. Obviously, I imagine a lot of Uber drivers are not going to be massively happy about it. But the main thing is, of course, is it safe? How viable is it going to be? They're saying that the interesting thing is that, sort of counterintuitively, but maybe not, that it's going to be safer because humans are rubbish and distracted and on our phones, and we've got our kids in the back and screaming at them and whatnot.
But are you not a bit worried that the computers at the moment can't tell which squares contain traffic lights? And that's going to be that's going to be an important part, right?
They need to learn how to do that fast, don't they? There's a lot of talk about whether it'll be safer. I'm sure it will be, but will it be fun? Will it be fun? Driving is getting less and less fun now.
Is it going to be like Total Recall, where it's going to be Johnny Cab in the front, and then you could sort of punch his face out the way, and then grab the stick yourself and go through the mining tunnels?
And can you say to the car, look, there's no cameras on this bit of road, just move? Or is it going to be so law-abiding, the most boring citizen you imagine?
And another thing, women getting home late at night, that might also be a bit safer.
Yeah.
So,
because I guess a self-driving car can't, get into the back seat and molest them.
I hope not.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sure that's coming.
Let's see if we can just squeeze in what's on the front of the Daily Star, Kerry.
Friends, by the way, I have never watched... I've seen bits of it. I know what it is. I know what it is.
You've never seen Friends?
Yeah, I don't really watch sitcoms. I don't care.
Are you serious? You've never seen Friends?
Yeah.
It's a great sitcom.
No, I know what it is. I know what it is. I've seen bits of it. I don't care. I don't care. You can say what you like.
I'm disgusted.
You can make me care.
There's
I don't care.
6 friends.
Don't care. Anyway, one of them, Courtney Cox, is seeing her late friend, co-star Matthew Perry, who visits her as a ghost.
Right.
And obviously people can debate the story of their life, but I can tell you factually that does not happen. OK, just in case anyone's got any doubts whatsoever.
You don't know for sure.
I am absolutely certain, yes. People should listen to sceptics, I met someone a while ago who told me that he believed his house was haunted, and he paid for a medium to come around who spent several visits throwing dust around and saying incantations, and after all that said, this house is now clean, which it wasn't, because it was covered in dust that she'd thrown everywhere. And he could have saved himself several £100 by calling me, and I would have said, no, the house is clean, and that's it.
You wouldn't have taken any dust. Anyway, that's the front page is dealt with, but coming up, Israel faces war crimes charges, Iranians celebrate the death of their president in that helicopter that we'll finally get to talk about, and Salman Rushdie can't work out why young Westerners support Islamists. It's because young people are stupid, Salman. See you in a couple of moments.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
2,000 football banning orders have been issued to England fans ahead of this summer's Euro 2024 tournament in Germany. But authorities think that more than 300,000 England supporters could go to Germany, with Scotland fans, of course, also expected to travel in huge numbers. Well, I'm joined now by GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. So you went to a press briefing this morning. As I understand, the authorities are gearing up to tackle what they see as a huge wave of potential hooliganism at the tournament. What's the latest?
Well, they're certainly not saying they're expecting hooliganism, and they are preparing for the worst, of course, if it happens, but hoping for the best. They say that in recent tournaments, England fans and, of course, Scotland fans have been pretty well behaved, but there will be very significant numbers attending that tournament, which gets underway in just over 5 weeks' time. That first match is Scotland taking on Germany in Munich, and of course just 2 days later it's England against Serbia near Dortmund. So 300,000 England fans alone they're expecting, because it's so accessible. I spoke earlier to Chief Constable Mark Roberts, who is the national lead for football policing. This is what he told me.
Positive, you know, England fans got a great record at recent tournaments. We know when any number of that people will travel, there's always potential for issues, but I think the German authorities are really well prepared. And I think one of the positives, particularly thinking about our fans, Germany's a beer drinking culture, so the police are well aware of dealing with people in the nighttime economy. They deal with plenty of big festivals, so I think we're going to a place that is well suited to work with us to keep everyone safe and make sure there's no issues.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kerr, still here with Josh Howie and Kerry Marks. And we're hosting a night with the Headliners live. You can join us for an evening of comedy. It's stand-up comedy. We're not doing this show live. That would be... that's what we already do. So it's Andrew Doyle, me, Simon Evans and Josh Howie. For more information, scan the QR code on the screen here or visit gbnews.com and you'll find out where it is and how to get there. Kicking off this section with The Guardian, and the International Criminal Court is seeking to arrest Israel's leader for war crimes. Josh, I'm sorry to make you angry so early in the show.
Well, this is the problem, is that the more angry I get, the less articulate I am anyway, let's go. OK, ICC prosecutor seeks arrest, I can't even read this, warrants for Israeli PM and Hamas officials for war crimes. Now, first of all, they're seeking an arrest warrant, so they haven't got these arrest warrants. Yep. They put in the claim it's going to take a couple of months to see if it comes through. But this whole thing is a farce. This is up is down, right is wrong. It's mental to conflate the crimes that Hamas, a terrorist organisation, committed against a defensive war that Israel doesn't want to be in, had to be in, to get its citizens back and to ensure its own survival. And they're saying here that they've accused Netanyahu, who I'm not a fan of, by the way, of causing starvation as a method of war. That's disproven, like, in terms of there's just no one starving there. This whole, do you remember all the stuff? Everyone's starving, could you have any footage of anyone starving? Oh, no, it's not actually, people aren't starving. The denial of humanitarian relief surprised double the amounts going in of food than there was before the war, before October 7th. And if anything, they're saying there's a growing evidence of war crimes. And if anything, over the last month or two, it's actually been more evidence of the lack of war crimes going on in terms of these numbers that are then quoted voted 35,000 people, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, which is basically Hamas. Those numbers, the UN themselves have recently dropped down to about 22,000, saying about 13 to 40,000 are Hamas terrorists. So it's actually got the lowest civilian to combatant ratio in modern warfare. And this is for urban warfare. So it's insane to accuse them of war crimes when America and ISIS, when they were fighting ISIS, were much greater casualties.
I mean, that's a fair point, but I mean, just to push back, they have focused on the aid being disrupted, which Israel said it was going to do early on in the war. I mean, since then
there was a couple of days
they've allowed
that.
aid through. But that was obviously a mistake, a strategic mistake by them to say that, you know, knowing full well that they couldn't starve a population. But that's still what they focused on here, and that's still, you know, a charge that they could probably
There were mistakes made early on, and certainly in some of the language used by Netanyahu, and this is in the immediate aftermath of war, and it wasn't statesmanlike. There was a lot of anger, but they didn't go, like, when they said we're going to destroy them or kill, you know, they're very clearly talking about Hamas. We're going to eradicate them.
First of all, though, for Netanyahu, this is just another arrest warrant. You know, he's already built up a few, and he'll probably form a new coalition government with the ICC and get away with it. I think the whole thing is I wonder whether it's partially that the atmosphere that's going on at the moment, they feel a need to both sides it, because if they just prosecute Hamas, the world's going to erupt right now. And I'm not saying that's right at all, but I'm saying
public opinion. I mean, obviously there's horrific footage coming out of Gaza. I mean, some of it's fake.
But that's because we're seeing a war in a way we're not used to seeing wars. We don't normally, it's unprecedented to hear numbers of deaths on a weekly basis going on in a war, especially when there's no reason to believe their accuracy whatsoever. And we're seeing footage that is coming, some of it is unverified, and some of it is from Gaza, some of it is from Syria, some of it is from Yemen and Sudan and so on, and this keeps happening. So if I believed for a second they were going to properly prosecute this case and look into it and find out what did happen with the food and water, and where was Hamas involved in it, were they stopping, which we know they've been very much involved in stopping food getting through. They've been, at one point, UNRWA complained that people in Gaza couldn't afford the food. Why were they trying to afford food that's being given for free?
They found stockpiles of food. Hamas, now they've gone into Rafah.
But also now there's 30...
found all these stockpiles of food that Hamas have confiscated.
Kana said that when you show willing to apply law equally and look at both sides, but there's not two sides here. There's other sides as well. There's UNRWA and its involvement. There's, of course, Iran. There's the 30 tunnels that has been found going into the Rafah crossing, in which we know now that around about 1,000 Hamas fighters managed to escape through those tunnels, probably through those tunnels. And Egypt's involvement needs to also be examined.
Green Party councillors would say that there are two sides to that. Anyway, The Guardian now, and Salman Rushdie is baffled as to why Western youth support violent medieval Islamists. Maybe people don't see the danger until they've had a fatwa issued against them, Kerry.
I like the way you put it first, but Salman Rushdie as a Palestinian state formed today would be Taliban-like, which is not a good thing. I don't know if people know much about the Taliban, but I can tell you these things. Their favourite meal is talibangas and mash. Their favourite instrument is talibanjo.
Talibanjo?
Yeah, OK. They keep money in their tally bag. I've got more. I've got more.
He's not playing.
They wear tally bangles and the rest. OK, we'll move on. Look, what he's saying is very logical and very much what we know is going to happen, and it happened with Lebanon next door as well. Is that it went from being virtually a paradise and a popular holiday destination all over the world to the hell that it is now.
Pretty much a lot, at least even Afghanistan itself used to be Buddhist, I believe.
Yeah, but what?
Afghanistan was Buddhist. Syria was Christian. Zoroastrian was...
Egypt was Coptic Christian.
And it's all gone.
Britain was Christian.
And it's all gone. You're looking at the Yazidis, they're down to 500,000 people. Britain was Christian. You know, change happens, but this has been quite an aggressive change across the Middle East. And it's also that it's not the whole Middle East, but there's parts of the Middle East with around about 50 terrorist groups who have almost full run of some of the countries. You know, of course, Hezbollah is around about 150,000 strong army that, and the Christian population there that were the majority are now tiny and living in fear.
The only place that the Christian population is going up in the Middle East is Israel. when he says that he's pro-Palestinian, I'm pro-Palestinian. Everybody I know is pro-Palestinian in terms of wanting a Palestinian state. Israel wants a Palestinian state.
But you just want it in Texas.
No, we want it next door, but Israel wants to live in peace and security, and there needs to be an actual partner who wants peace. Now, if you have the majority of Gaza, which has been repeatedly proven through polls, still supporting Hamas, still supporting the actions on October 7th, a big swathes of the West Bank as well, there is not that partner for peace to make it happen. That's the tragedy here. And the other tragedy that he's referring to is how young people within the West are allying themselves with fascists.
Yeah.
And doing so under the guise of be kind or inclusivity, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And we were just talking before the show about the history in Iran and how the Islamists allied themselves with the leftists and then slaughtered them, basically.
Yeah.
And
so some good news. So the leftists will get slaughtered by the Islamists.
But we would get slaughtered.
Over.
We get slaughtered first.
No, as long as I get to see the leftists getting slaughtered, I'm all right with that. The Daily Mail now, and Iranians have been setting off tiny explosive devices, but luckily these are fireworks, and they're just delighted that their president of the Islamic theocracy in Iran has died, Josh.
Yes, good news. Finally. The death of President Ebrahim Raisi is in a devastating helicopter crash. So you may be familiar with the statement, if you can't take President Raisi to the mountain, then bring the mountain to President Raisi. Yeah. So he was in a helicopter, you mentioned earlier. It's 50 years old, bought under the old regime. Israel has denied it and America have denied it. Jerusalem, they've basically found that there was no interference. Like this, the Iranians aren't suspecting foul play. It was foggy. It was a mountain. It was an old helicopter.
So the people who would have organised the coup against the president are saying there's no coup.
It could be, if there was a coup, then it could be, I guess, the son of the Ayatollah. He's now next in line, so that would be...
Which ironically would make it a monarchy, they just overthrew the Islamic theocracy.
Well, this is it. But, they said here, hundreds took to the streets in Tehran today, clad in black. That's hundreds out of a population of 80 million.
Yeah.
So there are many, many people who are very, very happy about this guy, because this guy was the butcher of Tehran, responsible for the deaths of about 5,000 people back in the 80s, a truly horrific human being, also the person who brought in the tightening down of the hijab laws, resulting in, again, deaths of young women and other terrible tragedies in prison to them. And so this is a great thing that he's dead. But, the president of the EU Council, Charles Michaels, sending his condolences. The UN leader,
the Security Council, even the US delegates.
This was an evil guy. It's insane.
I think most world leaders are evil, so you've still got to
but this was like
stuff when they die.
More obviously so.
But what's interesting, Kerry, is this helicopter they crashed in actually predated the Islamic Revolution. It was bought under the Shah. It's like almost 50 years old. It was an American helicopter. They probably couldn't service it and get parts.
In fact, he travels in it. Absolutely incredible. Largely because they've been spending all their money on weaponry and so on, which they've been sending over to Gaza. And unfortunately, even when it came to looking for him, they didn't have enough drones because they've sent them all over to Ukraine to help Russia. So it's all mad. What I did like was that someone tweeted the other day that it was carried out by a Mossad agent called Helicopter. And this has managed... I wish I could tell you who the tweet came from, but this has got around Telegram now as a fact. And then I believe it was on French TV where they announced that Telegram are saying that it was Helicopter, the Mossad agent, which is absolutely incredible. I'm generally of the opinion that people who torture, rape and whip women for their clothes aren't good people.
Yeah.
So,
I would... opinion.
Yeah, it's my strange opinion on
that. Anyway, the Telegraph now, and Biden claims Trump would have stopped the January 6th rioters if they were black. Although, if we're going to talk hypotheticals, Biden would have stopped the BLM rioters if they were white, Kerry.
Yes, there is that side of it, isn't it? It works both ways. Yeah, but Biden thinks... so he's making a speech to the black community and thought it was a very good point to tell them what would happen hypothetically in a situation that didn't happen. It's kind of childish, and it seemed a bit like playing by Trump's... everything Trump's accused of in speech style is to say what he would have done if it was this.
Yeah, George, it seems like incredibly sort of race-baiting from Biden. I mean, I say incredibly, it's not surprising. This is what the left...
Well, as Kerry said, it's playing at that kind of game, that kind of rhetoric. It's like, oh, can you imagine if these hypotheticals, they're not good, they don't work out for anybody. There is issues in certain swing states, certainly Michigan. There are more, particularly black men now saying that they support Trump. And it really comes down to, as most things do...
He's a cool guy.
Money, because he gave everybody $1,000 during COVID, and they actually felt that impact in their wallet. So now they're going, yeah, Trump's an all right...
He also told them to drink bleach, though, so I think that counteracted
Yeah, but you could buy a lot of bleach for $1,000.
Anyway, we're at the halfway point, but join us in a moment for the latest on Julian Assange, the Church of England going woke and going broke, and a $400 pineapple. See you in a moment.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A messy picture with the weather tomorrow. Most of us cloudier and cooler than today, but again, like today, there will be a few thunderstorms in place. We're between weather systems, but this area of low pressure is pushing up from the south and will generate a few more showers. We'll see the cloud thickening across East Anglia and the East Midlands with some showers here. The downpours we've seen across Northern Ireland, they will continue to fade through this evening, and many places will have a dry night. A bit misty and murky once more on these eastern coasts. Quite chilly across Scotland again. Temperatures down to about 3 to 5 degrees in rural spots, whereas in the south, many towns and cities staying in double figures. A cloudier day then on Tuesday, particularly over the Midlands, parts of northeast England and along the east coast of Scotland, especially Aberdeenshire up towards Orkney. Grey, misty and murky with that har sticking around, but a good part of Scotland actually starting sunny. Generally a dry start in Northern Ireland, but we are looking at some thunderstorms breaking out here later on. And we'll start with a lot of cloud over the Midlands, Northern England, and generally quite a drab day over central and eastern England. But some sunshine for Wales and southwest England. As the day goes on, increasing chance of again seeing some thunderstorms breaking out across Northern Ireland, but also southwestern parts of England. There's a Met Office warning in place. Wet weather will continue to affect parts of central and eastern England. A few scattered showers over the Highlands. Some brightness in western Scotland, but as I said, most places cloudier than today, and as a result, cooler. More cloud and rain then spill in from the east as we head into Wednesday. Could be a very soggy day over parts of eastern England and parts of Scotland. Some heavy downpours possible. And in the south, some brighter spells may well trigger some heavy showers as we go through the day. There'll be a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east, so a cool day here with some brightness further south. We could again get up to 20 Celsius. Bye for now.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Times now, and Julian Assange has won a state of execution, and I might mean that literally. If he gets sent to America, it might be curtains for him, Kieran.
Yeah, I think they're saying that's unlikely now, but which I don't think that would be a great look, would it, to do that? He's been in Belmarsh Prison in southeast London since April 2019, and that happened after he was expelled from the Ecuadorian embassy, where he was there for 7 years. We've all had these house guests, haven't we, who like kind of stay for a couple of days, desperate times, and then 7 years later, and there's pizza boxes and fag ends everywhere, and then of course he was opening the embassy door to diplomats wearing his dressing gown. I'm exaggerating, but I don't think I am.
He did
actually
a dirty protest as well.
Did he really?
Did he?
I thought he did.
Or was he just dirty?
Did it just become dirty because he, you know...
Because he was
I really
dirty.
thought he'd done a dirty protest. That
Right.
could well be some fake news that crept in somewhere.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think we should have protection for... We need protection for whistleblowers, but at the same time, when does it move over into being a liability or even traitorous? Well, when there's this much stuff that comes out constantly and you can't have any secrets anymore.
And it's the way it was revealed as well. I mean, although he definitely exposed a lot of, you know, terrible goings-on.
Yes, when it started, it was very good. You know, it was useful, important.
But then he also just did a sort of mass dump of data.
Yeah,
that,
people's lives put at risk or even ended. Do we know if people actually got killed?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, let's look at this. If only we knew someone who could find that information out and release
Somebody's got Google.
and release it to us.
We'll find out in the break.
They can find this. We need an Julian Assange Part 2 just to find out if what
How to kill people. What kind of information does it?
But there are serious implications here because they have that part of the case relies on the fact that the Americans said, if you're not from America, we can't guarantee that you have freedom of speech, which of course every American has.
Right.
So this has wider implications for anybody visiting America, and they really need to sort of nail that down. They've sort of said they could apply for it, but they need to change the language before then it would go to the next level.
OK, we've got the Independent now with the sad news that schools are having to spend money meant for books on feeding kids who are sent to school hungry. I guess there are a lot of useless parents out there, Josh.
Well, that's tough. That's well, it's just only that. Anyway, children coming.
Oh, can't make a sandwich. Can't make a sandwich.
Well, you don't get that option in primary school. You send them in, and you have to pay what food that they are serving, basically. But anyway, children come in hungry every single day. Schools are dipping into their own budgets to feed pupils. Now, this is 1 million children living in poverty miss out on free school meals because they tightened the criteria to you have to earn 7,400 or something a year, or less than that. Then a lot of people are in that weird middle zone. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest.
That's for the family, is it? The whole family?
That's for, I think it's if one person has total household income.
Wow, that's really
desperate. And believe it or not, that was about 8 years ago. We went through a year where we had exactly that. We did get on the school meals for that year because we weren't claiming any benefits, but we just had a bunch of kids. My wife wasn't working. I had just come off a whole load of work and hadn't started a new thing. So there's a weird year where we basically earned nothing. And we were entitled to the stuff. We didn't want to go on benefits, but we still were eligible. And then we weren't earning much money. The point is, that made a big difference that year, having those free school meals. Certainly when you have a couple of kids, it adds up. When you have very little income, the meals are, I think it's like £500 a term. So it just adds up and it makes a difference. So something like this, they do need to do something because there are children who are going hungry and it makes an impact on what they learn. And I just want to say something more before... Sorry, Kerry, I know you want to... But I just want to say this is the kind of stuff that planning and thinking long-term can really benefit the country economically as well.
Yeah, but it's politicians making these decisions. They don't want to think long term. They just want to know if they're going to still be popular next week and get elected.
And exactly that's the problem. But there are ways for this. We can source all our food from the UK, subsidising UK farmers to do it. Healthier food that would lead to a better educational outcomes for children.
Like communism to me, Kerry.
Well, no, I think what Josh is saying is all very sensible, but it's not my take, I guess, because I mean I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because what I'm for is all the children should be given food, but it should be on a reward system. You know, you pass a test, get over a certain point, you get a sausage, that kind of thing, and that makes them want to learn. It makes them want to know. No, it wasn't. That's a horrible way to think. Also,
as opposed to your horrible way to think.
My way works. My way, they work. I tell you, this would. Yeah. And also, you know, the kids get on the bus at the end of the day. I'd rather them just be hungry and out of energy.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to be serious, I think, all state-educated kids. I was a state-educated kid. I had school dinners, we had to pay for it and stuff. But I think...
Make them eat the same awful desserts.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I loved it. It was much better than Mum's food, to be honest. I think it's great to have all kids getting fed, all getting, sitting down at the same table, and also taking that burden off the parents. You know, even middle-class parents, even, parents who... Because it is... You spend a lot of time making meals for your kid.
Nah, I don't like kids anyway. To hell with them.
Well, The Guardian now takes us to California, where pineapples might be the next Bitcoin, Kerry.
California is the place for luxury fruits, and that's not a gay slur story. And this is
just got it.
The pineapple. Thank you. A pineapple called Ruby Glow. Catch up. Which was created in Costa Rica, and it's more like Costa Fortune, really. And it costs $395
bargain
for this pineapple. Yeah, well, in British money, that's only £310.90, so it's not quite so terrible. It says a limited edition pineapple price at that price, a cost many would find exorbitant. I don't know what they mean by many there. I would have thought just about any sensible person would think that's a little bit expensive for a pineapple. I love the fact this story is following after children not being fed and straight to rich people. Yeah. But the creator or the company that's created it, say they're the leaders in pineapple innovation, which I thought was nature, but there you go. They've taken it to a whole new, more expensive level.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Josh, the way they talk about it, the leaders in pineapple innovation. I mean, it's not a new iPhone, it's a pineapple.
And also, it's like they're deliberately only making a few thousand of these to create that exclusive. I'm
so cynical.
We should be breeding more of these pineapples.
Yeah,
everybody should be getting one of these.
Eventually, there'll be $1.
£50.
But the story reads like an advert, doesn't it? Everything in it is that the fruit is being made available. Melissa's produce, special produce.
It's been sponsored by Big Pineapple.
Yeah, that's right.
And The Guardian.
Is it a Big Pineapple? Maybe that's why it's $400. Yeah. We've got the Metro now with the news that everyone on the show tonight has microplastics in their testicles. Not me, though. I've got full-size plastics in my gonads.
I was going to say speak for yourself, but you already covered that. There's... I read through this thing. There is absolutely no mention of how funny the word testicle is, which surprised me. Why would they not include that?
And it sounds plastic anyway.
Yes, and we've all got plastic in our testicles, which is why so many plastic babies are being born. And
I've been trying to get mine out just before the show.
Were you really? You're actually just the new expression, clearing plastic.
That's why I was late coming back.
Some of it is the size of a sesame seed, which is still quite big in a testicle, isn't it? Yeah, and that's the primary. There's primary and secondary plastics, and secondary plastics refer to large plastic bottles, products that have been broken down into smaller pieces, such as plastic bottles, food packaging, and tyres. I think if you've got a tyre in your testicles, there's definitely a problem. Yeah. You know, when you need to inflate your tyres to 30p, your testicles 30 psi, then I'd say that's a pretty bad thing. Yeah. So yeah,
Josh, are you worried about microplastics in your testicles?
Not anymore now that I'm not having any more children. Right. But I'm worried about my children's testicles. Right. The amount of plastic that's getting in there. And it's pretty disgusting. They basically added acid to the testicles to then...
This sounds worse than microplastics.
To get rid of... to leave the plastic. Like that, that's how they got the plastics out. They melt the testicles away. So that was pretty horrific.
The imagery's amazing here, isn't it?
Sorry. And just a hello to our morning listeners.
Yeah, enjoy your breakfast.
Enjoy your Cheerios.
Hope you're having pineapple. That's it for part 3, but coming up, Rishi got £100 million richer last year, which is just as well as he might be out of a job soon, and Ofcom are clamping down on a TV channel, but it's not GB News this time. See you in a couple of moments.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the quaint Derbyshire village of Sudbury, there's a storm brewing between the local football club and the National Trust. This grass field might seem unremarkable, but for hundreds of years it's been part of the Sudbury Hall estate, playing host to the village football and cricket matches. Now the National Trust are planning to put an end to that tradition in the name of biodiversity, with plans for trees and plants where the football club play. Some worry it breaks a memorandum of wishes from the late Lord Vernon, whose family have lived here since 1660. Manager of Sudbury FC Tom Crutchley says he's upset at the decision.
Naturally disappointed. We've been here, this is our 9th year. We've put a lot of effort into here to keep playing, to maintain it. I'm from the village originally, so personally it is very upsetting.
MP for Derbyshire Dales Sarah Dines says the National Trust aren't respecting the history of the site.
I feel they're trampling over the wishes of historic owners who gave up this wonderful site for the nation. And for over 100 years, people have played football and cricket here. It's incredibly sad. incredibly sad. And it's against the wishes of a lot of people locally who've written to me from the village.
Sudbury Hall lives under the branding of the Children's Country House, a decision which Dines says is disrespectful to the history of the estate.
I mean, this is fake to make it into a children's theme park. It's almost a reimagining, and in fact, that's the very words it says on their website. The house is reopened, it's been reimagined. I don't want our heritage to be reimagined. I think the National Trust has been captured by people who have different ideas than most people in this country.
Whilst the public will still be able to roam these historic grounds, the village feels like a legacy is being snatched away. Jack Carson, GB News, Sudbury.
We're GB News, and we come from a proud tradition of British journalism.
That's why I'm so excited to be here. It's something so new.
The first news channel to be launched in Britain in over 30 years.
Launched to represent the views of the British people.
To go where other broadcasters refuse to go.
How did you find out about the story in the first place?
Launched with one aim.
To be the fearless champion of Britain.
It's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere here.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel! GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Times now with the news that Rishi got £100 million richer last year. Blimey, he must be clever with his money. I just wish he'd be clever with my money too, Josh.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Don't blame Rishi Sunak for being richer than the king, says Minister. This is the Paymaster General, so he would know exactly how much he earns. And this is from the Times Rich List. And yeah, so Rishi Sunak's richer than the king. It is what makes it difficult is then to really believe at that level of wealth that he, you know, the whole, like, do you know the price of milk? Everyone's obsessed with that. But you could argue, and this politician argues that, look, he's trying to help everybody out. It doesn't matter that he's rich. But I just think it just does. I don't see how it can't distance you from reality, that level, like those hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah, because he's not just doing well, he's like exorbitantly, you know, insanely rich.
To be fair, it should then work the other way as well. If you've got a leader who's really poor, how good are they going to be with the economy and looking after a country as well if they haven't managed to...
You want someone with about 3 million.
Is there an exact figure, you reckon, or something like that? I find it...
Never Tony Blair earns.
John Glenn says the Prime Minister's wealth is a private matter and much of it isn't due to him personally because of who he fell in love with, which is a bit of an odd point to make because surely who he fell in love with is due to him personally. And also the question of would she have fallen in love with him if he was broke and living in a gutter? Probably not. It's a bit like saying his money has nothing to do with him. It's just the people he invested with. You know, that does make a bit of a difference. Yeah. I think this is to do with his popularity is going up and down, but it's not going up and down based on how much money he's got, because that's been fairly consistent. It's more going up and down because he's rather dull and doesn't have any exciting ideas, is what I would personally think.
Yeah, but I think it's a bad idea, for someone who supports him to say, judge him on his record.
Yeah, then you go straight... Yeah.
You're trying to help your friend here.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
He seems to be having a bit of a sprint finish, though.
Yeah, but
do you think so? It might be.
I think Keir Starmer's already crossed the line, hasn't he?
Yeah, it feels like it. Well, we've got the Metro now, and it looks like the old saying will have to be updated. Cow burps are a girl's best friend, Kerry.
OK, this is about Tom Fadell, who is the inventor of the iPod.
And the word fad.
And fad. Hell with that, he said. He invented the iPod, and then it says straight afterwards that he was also co-invented the iPhone, which is something he has to do now, because when he tells people about the iPod, everyone's like, the what? So, yes, in its time, of course, quite an amazing device, which all of us had, and then it was surpassed by the iPhone. Yeah, did you? I think I had 100 or something. Yes, he's come up with a way of... He's an inventor and ideas man. He's come up with a way of turning cow burps and farts into diamonds, which sounds wonderful, but to be clear, we're talking about the kind of diamonds that are used in electronics, rather than the kind you wear on your ring finger.
Right, fun ones.
Yeah, so obviously cow farts and burps are a major problem in our world. I wish they understood that. A few years back, if you might remember, they came up with a suppository that was supposed to reduce cow farting. For a long while you have...
We could send them on etiquette lessons.
Well, that would really help as well. But for a while, you had farmers pushing their fists into cows' bums for the planet.
I watch a lot.
You know, they say this is for the planet. You know,
I'm trying to help. You don't see the Just Stop Oil people doing that thing.
But of course, it's a danger now that cows are going to find that their farts are being turned into diamonds. They're going to get all superior.
Yeah. But I love stories like this. Well, first of all, he says the world is waking up to methane, and I just want to say hello to my wife as well. But this guy also invented two really interesting things. One is that a methane sensor that found, and we covered this story about 6 months ago, a year ago, that I think it was Uzbekistan or something, but like 20% of the world's methane was basically just coming from gas leaks from one oil field that just hadn't had any sort of technical expertise. They went in there, they could sort it. Things like that I love, because we know there is issues with pollution and climate change and all of this stuff, but these are the kind of innovations that can make a difference. He also started feeding red seaweed to cows, and it dropped the methane by 80 to 90%.
Wow.
So things like that, like, they make a real impact.
They're actually doing something as opposed to Just Stop Oil, who are just getting in the way. We've got the Mail now with the latest attempt by Ofcom to make television less competitive with the internet, Josh.
I'm a Sled bosses have been warned watchdogs will come down on them like a ton of bricks if they continue to sign up politicians for the Soch. So we had last year we had Nigel Farage, before that Matt Hancock. They're saying that Nigel Farage is the reason why figures dropped. I don't believe it. I think it was just a bad show. I also could believe that there's something to this idea that they edited out. They deliberately didn't put in some of the more interesting stuff. Yeah. I could actually believe that, just because we know that people, the ideologues within cultural institutions, make these kind of ridiculous decisions.
Oh, if you saw the bits that were left out of this show tonight, oh my God, it was much better.
We had that. Exactly. But yeah, basically they're saying, they're just not going to have any politicians, but I think they've kind of run out of everybody, haven't they?
Yeah, politicians are willing to go on it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I told you I don't watch Friends. I never watch Friends. I never watch reality TV either, so I don't really care who they have on. I suppose there is a danger that when you put on a politician, you turn it into a party political broadcast, so they get a chance to say an awful lot of political opinions. And I can sort of see that, but it'd probably be a good idea to have the Jungle just do a politicians-only one from both sides, and then
isn't that the House of Commons?
Well, I was going to say dispense with the elections.
That's a great idea.
Let's just squeeze in this one quickly, as the actress said to the Bishop. This is the Star now with great news for fans of boobs and tasteless jokes. The Dublin portal is going to reopen, Kerry.
Yes, it got shut down because people behaved predictably and decided to expose themselves instead. I don't even understand what the point... I mean, the age of internet now where everyone's connected and zooming each other and so on, and now there's a portal. Yeah. But it's not a portal, is it? It's just yet another Zoom.
But they told people in Ireland that it's a portal. It's Zoom. It's a Zoom call. And everyone's like, what is this magic?
Basically,
here's my boobs.
This is what happened. They opened the portal. It was fun, so they shut it down.
What is this magic?
Now they're going to reopen it. It's not in Jamaica, Josh, but they're going to reopen it with guards, apparently, to make sure nobody gets their boobs out. Although the guards that I know in Dublin actually make sure you show your boobs. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with Day That Shames the British State. That's talking about the infected blood scandal. The Telegraph also has a day of shame for the British state. The Guardian has Day of Shame, deadly cover-up of blood scandal finally exposed. And the Times has Britain's Day of Shame over tainted NHS blood. The iNews has Day of Shame for Britain, blood scandal cover-up kills thousands. And finally, the Daily Star has the one where Matthew Perry visits Courtney Cox from beyond the grave. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Josh Howie and Kerry Marks. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Lewis Schaefer and Steve N. Allen. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. But until then, good night and God bless.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A messy picture with the weather tomorrow. Most of us cloudier and cooler than today, but again, like today, there will be a few thunderstorms in place. We're between weather systems, but this area of low pressure is pushing up from the south and will generate a few more showers. We'll see the cloud thickening across East Anglia and the East Midlands with some showers here. The downpours we've seen across Northern Ireland, they will continue to fade through this evening, and many places will have a dry night. A bit misty and murky once more on these eastern coasts. Quite chilly across Scotland again. Temperatures down to about 3 to 5 degrees in rural spots, whereas in the south, many towns and cities staying in double figures. A cloudier day then on Tuesday, particularly over the Midlands, parts of northeast England and along the east coast of Scotland, especially Aberdeenshire up towards Orkney. Grey, misty and murky with that har sticking around, but a good part of Scotland actually starting sunny. Generally a dry start in Northern Ireland, but we are looking at some thunderstorms breaking out here later on. And we'll start with a lot of cloud over the Midlands, Northern England, and generally quite a drab day.